So in the next few sessions, I'm going to talk about cardiac pathology and vascular pathology. And when we talk about the heart and the blood vessels, it would also involve a little bit of the lungs as well, because it is cardiorespiratory pathology. So as much as you have separate modules in cardiac pathology and respiratory pathology, we start with the heart valves. And this is Sri Kumar here. I'm a professor of pathology and director for research, innovation and postgraduate studies at Masa University, Malaysia, taking you through these sessions. So our first session in this series is valvular heart disease. The heart is controlled by valves, and the heart controls you. For undergraduate students, tell me, what is the function of the heart? Well, if you think the function of the heart is to fall in love, you're partially right. For postgraduate students, what do you think is the function of the heart? If you think the function of the heart is to recover after having a break in your love, you're probably right at your age. Well, the heart functions to pump blood all over the body, and that is why we are all surviving. When they say, my heart is in love, that is because they feel that the heart is the most important organ in the body, which is why when you are in love, they refer to the heart. And the heart functions because of the valves that control it. Water flows in a river and used for irrigation purposes because of the dam that is built to control the water. And the valves have a unidirectional blood flow. And for those of you who drive cars, you see the car tires have an air pressure in it. Why does the air that you push in the car, why does the air doesn't come out? Because there is a valve there that allows air to go only into the tire, and it prevents the air to come out from the tire outside. So it helps in unidirectional airflow. The same thing with the heart. The heart valves allow a unidirectional blood flow. This is an example of a normal valve with three cusps. This is the aortic valve that has been cut open and it has been spread out. You can see the sinus of Valsalva. You can see 1, 2, and 3 cusps. These are the simple cusps. This is the aorta, and this is part of the heart valve, the left ventricle. We have 4 valves: the aortic valve, the pulmonary valve. The aortic valve is from the left ventricle, pumping blood to the whole body. The pulmonary valve is from the right ventricle that pumps blood through the pulmonary trunk through the lungs. And then the mitral valve and the tricuspid valve. These are AV valves, atrioventricular valves. So the anatomical dimensions of valves are suited in such a way that it helps in the function. The aortic valves are valves with just cusps, while the mitral and tricuspid valves are valves not only with cusps, but with chordae tendineae and papillary muscle as well, because they have more amount of functions. So this is something that you have to read in anatomy, and I won't discuss much in this, the difference between semilunar and atrioventricular valves. Now let us take a cross-section of a atrioventricular valve. Now every atrioventricular valve, like I told you, either the mitral or the tricuspid, has an annulus. Annulus is a Greek word for ring. Leaflets, the chordae tendineae that collect the leaflets and connect it to the papillary muscle, and the papillary muscle that connects it to the ventricular valve. Histologically, when you cut the valve, you will see 3 layers: the ventricularis, the spongiosa, and the fibrosa. Spongious is the spongy part, the soft part. The fibrosa is the tough, thickened part. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this picture is for you to understand how the valve works. I'm sure all of you would have played the game tug of war. Do you know what is the game tug of war? Where you have a rope and people pull the rope on either side. You first have 2 or 3 levels of people who are strong to a certain extent and lighter people. But as the people behind are lined up, they are more heavier and even more stronger. That is the same thing that happens in the valve. You have the annulus, which is, and the chordae tendineae, which are playing the tug of war and pulling the annulus. The stronger people are the papillary muscle, and this is connected to the ventricular wall. Which means, remember, when a valve opens and closes, it is not just the flap that is moving. It is the whole heart that is helping in moving, opening and closing the valve. And the main backup support is by the ventricular wall. Now, why should you know this? This is an important concept because sometimes in a heart attack, the chordae tendineae or ventricular wall, which has undergone an infarction, will rupture, and that will cause the valve to start flapping, and that will cause mitral regurgitation because the valve is not being held by the ventricular wall anymore. So when there is a damage to the heart valve, it is called valvular heart disease. There are numerous types of diseases I'm going to discuss, and it's going to take more than 3 or 4 lectures for you. So when a valve is damaged, there is a hemodynamic burden. Hemodynamic burden means the blood undergoes a burden when it moves because the valve is narrowed, resulting in an obstruction. This is called stenosis, or the valve just opens out. It does not open and close. So there is a regurgitation. The blood flows back. The air in the tire in the car comes out because there is a regurgitation. The blood that is supposed to stay in the ventricle flows back into the atrium, regurgitation. So because of this regurgitation and stenosis, the valve leaflets are more susceptible to an infection in the heart. This is called infective endocarditis. And usually this is more common in mitral and aortic valves rather than the tricuspid and the pulmonic valves because mitral and aortic valves handle more amount of blood flow. A greater hemodynamic burden is there on the mitral and the aortic valves. So there are numerous causes of valve disease and each is important in its own way, not only for pathology, but when you move from pathology to medicine,